Hmm. Welcome, ladies. So, as everyone's arriving, I'm going to ask for you to go ahead and start to drop in. So, you can close your eyes. We're going to take a moment to connect to our inner flame, to connect to our inner priestess, and just get to that place where we're able to connect on the call from a deeper space than maybe how you're arriving right now, because you're probably in a more mental space. You're trying to get everything adjusted and wanting to get here on time and all the things you had to do to make sure that you got here on time. So now that we're here, let's drop into a deeper state of presence. So closing your eyes, number one, so we can bring that attention inward and not have all that distraction that the visual field brings into the mental space. Let's get into a more feeling-oriented space. This allows us to connect to that feminine intuition and instinct. So how I like to guide us to do that is to really drop into the pelvis. We want to drop into that sweet, succulent center point in your body, right? This juicy place where so much of your guidance and your wisdom really wants to be felt and wants to emit out into the world. So we do that by feeling the parts of our body that are making contact with the seat beneath us. We start to drop in and we feel, oh yeah, we feel the butt cheeks, we feel our thighs, we feel the texture of the seat beneath us, we feel the level of support that's coming up from Mama Earth, and we soften into it. This is how we actually become stronger leaders and guides in the world, as we soften into the support. So noticing where there's any extra tensing, tightening in the body that's unnecessary, and giving permission for that to soften. And we do that by breath. We breathe into sensation. And drawing your awareness into the center of your pelvic floor. Feeling all of that energy that gets kind of bottled up there, and just breathing into it, so much of your life force, your vitality, and seeing if you can locate your perineum and just softening the entire pelvic floor. I do a little purr sometimes when I feel the sensation. As I breathe and I soften, there's so much aliveness there. And sometimes it's that aliveness that freaks us out. We don't even want to stop and shut our eyes and tune in and breathe, actually, because there's so much aliveness that we're a little bit afraid. But right now, breathing into that aliveness, breathing into whatever is there, and beginning to drop a cord, dropping that cord of connection from the center of your pelvic floor, from your perineum, through the seat cushion beneath you, through the floorboards, down into the basement of the building you're in, and through the basement floor, down into the soil, dropping deeper and deeper into Mama Earth. All of these layers. And this cord eventually is getting closer and closer to the very center point, the very core of the earth, wrapping itself around, perhaps feeling this electricity as if you're plugged in, and breathing some of that energy up into your pelvis. Feeling yourself plugged in, turned on, tuned in. Oh yeah. Alive women. Just taking a few breaths. Feeling your body receiving support, receiving nourishment, receiving energy. And with the eyes closed, we're going to do 3 Ma chants together. Inhaling. With the eyes closed, just breathing in. Feeling now the rooting, grounding aliveness in the pelvis, and now this sensation of sound vibration moving throughout your entire body. And just breathing into how present and how alive you feel in this moment compared to perhaps just a few moments before. And breathe in and just feel into your I am statement, wherever you are with that right now. And just say it a couple times to yourself. And now when you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. And welcome you, powerful, incredible women. Welcome to week 2 of our Embodied Feminine Leadership immersion. Week 1, the focus was on the first piece of the foundation, which is just our physical body. If we're really going to emanate at this heightened frequency and really show up in whatever capacity in our life as someone who's leading and guiding from a new paradigm energy, someone who is really able to elevate the vibration, the frequency of the space we're in, we need to have a vessel that is open, that is clear, that is supportive of this feminine energy, this Shakti, to be really conductive and moving through. So we started with just some simple cleansing practices, the water, the greens, the probiotics, and you should be feeling a little clearer from that, a little lighter in some ways. And for some of you, that may be something you've already been really including in your practice, and for others of you, it may have been a bigger shift. And we also started to do some of the very basic pieces of a morning practice, very simple, just getting the body moving, doing some of the Shakti breathing, and beginning our I am statements. And this week, we are going to move into deepening the conversation around presence and what it means to really be an embodiment of the divine feminine, And we're also going to really look at our home environment and how that is supporting our practice. So there's a page, the page that we're opening to today in your manual says at the top, can you handle this much ecstasy? And I was kind of referencing that a little bit when I said on the top of the call that when we drop in and you feel this aliveness, you feel the sensation in your pelvis, that sometimes it can actually be a little bit scary to, like, there's a part of us that's not sure we're allowed to feel that good. We're not sure we're allowed to feel this alive, this powerful, because really a lot of what we're doing from the physical energetic perspective is we're plugging ourselves in. And I get so excited seeing all your faces and feeling your energies, because it's like we are a collective of women who are plugging ourselves into the power, like into the power socket. And most of us have been walking around, most of our population has been walking around not plugged in. You know, it's like most people are really disembodied and living from just up here. And what we're speaking of is really becoming a woman that's so embodied that our presence is something that is felt, and that actually we instruct others from that space. It's a felt energy that others receive from us. You know, I'm noticing I can hear somebody. All right. For some reason, it's set up for everyone to be muted, but maybe occasionally. All right, we're good now. So can you handle this much ecstasy? Because to be an awakened woman in this way is to be alive and to be connected to your sensation. And you know, we're going to get into some of these archetypes of the wild woman. It's to be connected to your feeling state. And to be connected to our feminine energy is to be connected to feeling. And the more masculine world that we live in tends to value logic and intellect above the feeling. And what we're here doing together is really recognizing the value and the importance of our feeling. And so that can sometimes bring up emotion as well. So as we drop into the body, you might start feeling more emotional, more connected to your feelings, which to some people could seem irrational in some way or more wild. However, this is you actually getting connected to your intuition. This is you getting connected to your aliveness as a woman. And we've been taught by our culture and our society to tap that down and to shut ourselves off and really be disconnected to our power. Because we live in a world that in many ways is kind of scared. It's kind of scared of women who are really alive, women who are really tapped in and really know their power. And then we've absorbed that and we're afraid of our own power. We're afraid at the level of feeling. We're afraid at the wattage that can suddenly rush in. So as we begin to open the channels more and more, it's almost like, you know, and I can recall moments where I've had this sensation where suddenly it's like the level of wattage of electricity that's coming through is so high. I'm afraid that I'm going to, like, you know, burn a fuse or you know, like, can the wire handle it? And the aliveness, when we breathe into it, is most often really ecstasy. Ooh, some little bug just came and whispered in my ear. It's an ecstatic experience of aliveness, and we're a bit afraid of it. And really, the feminine spiritual awakening that I'm guiding us towards is the experience of embodiment, not enlightenment necessarily. It's like a form of enlightenment, but comes first through a level of embodiment. It's an awakening that comes through that embodiment. And it's really, instead of divine transcendence, it's divine immanence, right? Divine immanence. That means that we get to connect to the divine here and now in this moment not trying to transcend this physical reality we're in. We're actually coming more deeply into this physical reality to experience the awakening that's right here, right now. So that heaven is not off in the future, in the distance. It's right here. This heaven on earth experience. This experience of our own divinity within us and experiencing the sacredness of the very moment we're in. When we awaken in this way, everything has the possibility of sacredness. That we start to recognize, and this is a heightened awakening experience, is to really recognize the sacredness of every little physical object, the sacredness of yourself, your own physical container, connection with other people, animals, flowers, birds, the table, like everything has an aliveness in it. And really how we make something sacred is by giving presence to it. So the experience of breathing into something and giving our fullness of attention, our presence to something, is what creates the experience of something being sacred. So the possibility is here for us to have an experience more on a day-to-day basis where we're experiencing the aliveness, the divinity, the sacredness of everything around us, and this level of electricity moving through us. And it's a commitment to presence. And I want to just have you kind of breathe into right now and feel if you can, if you're able personally to make that commitment, that this is the path of the divine feminine. It is a commitment to presence. It's a commitment to not checking out. It's a commitment to aliveness, to bring the divine, to bring the sacred to every interaction, to every experience. It's like, you know, the flowers are sacred and your shit is sacred. Like everything can be elevated. And it's actually like a process of alchemy that we do. It's like we're alchemizing. We're surrounded by the unsacred all of the time. And that means it's just this level of lack of presence, lack of really honoring the divinity. And when we bring this with us, we start to transmute and alchemize experiences, places, interactions. So my question is, can you handle this much presence? Just feeling into that, like it's commitment. And can you hold yourself accountable to this commitment to truth? Not checking out. And can you allow this much ecstasy into your being? And as we move into the sensual goddess, we'll get more and more into that. But yeah, are you ready? Yeah, sound good? Can you commit to this? And this is what I wrote in here that I love. I say yes now and travel with me on this path of the feminine, scattered with rose petals and navigated by your heart, your guts, and your feminine sensual center. We make a commitment to creating the sacred wherever we set foot. It's like this is the sacred commitment of the priestess path, in a sense, that we're making that commitment together. Imagine that there are rose petals, that's the sign of the goddess, being scattered behind you with each step. And you leave the room and a single rose petal floats in the air as a reminder that the goddess was present. A woman awakened to the divine feminine transmutes every space and every interaction into the sacred. So just breathing into and feeling that. And yes, we live in these crazy worlds with all sorts of commitments and jobs and families, and we got to drive in cars, and we got to get on our smartphone and get on Facebook and all that stuff going on. But can we every day wake up and make that commitment to be something other, to be something else, to be that priestess, and to transmute? I love that word, alchemy and transmutation. It's like that stuff that's coming in, and we breathe it in, and then we send it back out covered in rose petals. And we are able to do this because of our practice, because of our centering, because of our embodiment and our breath. And breath is really the pathway here. The breath is the pathway to that level of presence, this embodiment, to this ecstasy, and to the truth. So, are we in? Yeah, I see some hands raised. Yeah. All right. So now that we're all committed, we're on this path together. We've got another 11 weeks in this. We're going to start with our first goddess tonight. And this goddess is Hestia. And Hestia is the goddess of the hearth and the home fire. And she has a lot to instruct us or teach us about presence and really understanding. I bring her in right now because as part of the foundations we're setting, it's like first we're aware of like, okay, I want to have a vessel that's really open and able to move this energy and be awakened in this way. Now, I also, right outside my body self, there is my home sanctum, this environment that's right around me that affects me so much every day. And really, we want to have a space that feels sacred, that feels like a sanctuary, and a space that's going to be supportive of the work we're doing together. We want to have a space that's going to be supportive of us being able to do our morning practice, but beyond that, to feel like we're in our bodies and that we're in the present moment. And the more we're connected to the present moment in our bodies, the more our space and environment actually becomes really important to us. We notice things, we're very sensitized to it. We want to feel that it's something that feels nourishing. Now, I just realized I'm going to plug my computer in because I'm noticing it's not, and I just don't want to lose battery in the middle. 1 second. Sorry. Okay. Plugged in. We need to be plugged in, and my computer needs to be plugged in. She needs some Shakti in there. Okay. So Hestia is this beautiful Greek and Roman goddess. In the Roman tradition, she's called Vesta. So you may have heard of her in that form. And Hestia in the Greek tradition. And she carries this flame, this sacred flame. And they would say Hestia, and in ancient Greece, they would say Hestia first and last. She would be the first goddess called upon when they were going to do a series of prayers to the different gods and goddesses. And she would be the last one at the end. And it was really understood that without Hestia, it was kind of like the rest of the Olympians, the rest of the gods and goddesses couldn't really exist. That she was there first and last, kind of bookending everything, because she energetically in some ways preceded them, that they needed to have Hestia to have all of their different powers. So like all of these different powers that these gods and goddesses embodied could not exist if they didn't have the sacred flame of Hestia first. So she was very, very important goddess. And what's interesting is that over time, she's become in a way obscure. So people may, you kind of hear of Aphrodite, or you hear of Venus, or you hear of, Ares or Mars, the god of war, and Mercury and Zeus and these other gods. But Hestia is not as well known. And part of that is that is because over time, really what she represented, as we moved into a more patriarchal paradigm, we started to take the focus out into the public sphere, into the agora, into the public spaces, and less focus on the private space and the inner space. She really represents this private, personal inner sanctum, and both the actual home and then what that really represents on a more energetic level. And just to tell you a little bit about her, so she, in Mount Olympus, essentially, she never married. She was there basically making Mount Olympus beautiful all the time, and like keeping it, the fire there going, keeping the space beautiful, just making it so that all the gods and goddesses actually had a home. And without Hestia, it's like they wouldn't have had a home to come back to. And in ancient Greece and Rome, when a young woman married, her mother would give her some of the flame so every woman had a flame in their household. That was the flame of Hestia that was kept burning all the time. And if this flame went out, it was like, sort of misfortune. Like you would never let this flame go out. It needed to be constantly burning because it represented the spark of life in the home. And when a young woman would marry, her mother would give some of from her flame to the daughter, and the daughter would take it to the new household. And so it was actually this very matrilineal form of power that was passed, from grandmother to mother to daughter, on down the line. And in essence, every woman in her household was a priestess to Hestia, maintaining that flame. And in ancient Rome, when a new kind of territory came into, like when they, sort of took on a new territory or built a new area, there had to be a flame that was taken there, because not only was there a flame in the private every home, there was also a flame of the village. There was a flame of the town. And, in Rome being like the capital, it's like a major flame there. Each outpost had to have their own flame. And it was again taken from that flame, and they would sort of, put it in something, I'm not sure exactly what, but, actually, I think it was a torch in some sense, because the Olympic torch is actually related to this tradition, how they would pass that torch along in the Olympics. So they would pass this, they would go over many, many miles passing this torch along to get to the outermost region to get that flame there, so that they could then be considered a part of the mother colony. And again, this flame had to be maintained, and always it was sort of like representing the connection to the mother territory, but also just representing this sense of presence, aliveness, value, sacredness. And then there was the actual temple of Hestia and the temple to Vesta. And there was a flame kept in the very center, and around that there were concentric circles, and the priestesses, only the most elevated priestesses were able to tend to the flame, or actually even see the flame. So it was kind of like the temple was built in a way that you had to slowly work your way up to ever be able to get to the flame itself. And again, this is representing this value of something that's kind of inner and hidden. And over time, you can kind of get to that. But its value in many ways resides in that its sacredness in how private it is. Now, this flame was said to have an umbilical cord that went all the way to the center of the earth, and that this flame came from the center of the earth, from that volcanic core of the earth, and that through that core, then it came up, and then the priestesses tended to this flame. What I love about that as well is that when you feel into these grounding practices that I do at the beginning when we're setting up to do our Shakti breathing, is we drop this cord, almost like this umbilical cord, right to the very center and core of the earth. So this flame that was actually tended to, and this flame that was kept in the house, in many ways is representative of this flame of presence and this flame of Shakti that we awaken within our own physical body, within our own energetic center. And what her energetic is pointing us to ultimately is that before we go out into the world, before we're active in the world, like all those other gods and goddesses, we tend to our inner flame. We plug ourselves in, we connect, we bring that flame within ourselves. And nothing has value in a way out in the world unless it's coming, unless we're plugged in and we're in our flame. That's almost like no point in going out and doing things there. Let's tend to the inner world first. That's really what she's saying. That's what the value that this story is expressing to us, is to really tend to our inner self, to really value that connection, to awaken that flame of presence and aliveness within ourselves. So we'll talk, I'll do some practices where we'll kind of invoke that and feel into that energetically a little bit later. But it's sort of like that's the most inner expression of what this goddess energy is talking about. And then there's also something really important about just really looking at the home space too. And it was like this flame was representing within the home this spark of aliveness, this spark of presence. And, you know, when I was a health and nutrition coach originally in New York, and I worked with so many women, I could remember a lot of career women, especially in New York. And for a lot of the women, there was a sense of kind of not really fully occupying, and this is not true for everyone, but I did see this quite a bit, not fully occupying their home space or giving attention to that. It was kind of like all my energy and attention is what I'm doing at work or what I'm doing out in the world, or having a big, you know, especially in New York, it's like really big, having a social life, eating out a lot at restaurants and going out at night. And it was like everything was happening out there. Not necessarily a lot of attention happening in the home space, like, you know, cooking at home. And, you know, being that I was a health and nutrition coach, that was one of the places I put my emphasis with women a lot, was like, let's get the fire in your oven, like the fire in your kitchen working, like let's cook at home, because there's this level of, you know, one, by cooking for yourself, it's like this attention and awareness to your physical body and nourishing that and really prioritizing that. But it's also, it's like when like soup's cooking on the stove or something's in the oven, there is this feeling of presence in the home space. There's this warmth to it. And, you know, so often in olden days, like, you know, you would have had to have had a fire, literally have fire just for warmth in the home in the colder times of the year. And and like lighting candles to have light in the space. It's like this feeling of life force in your space, this feeling of aliveness. And it's something that I think is really valuable to just take a look at for yourself. Some of you might already naturally be really good at this. Some of you might be like, oh, I could bring more of this in. I'm a natural Hestia in a lot of ways. It's like, I'm actually living in a place right now that I'm subletting for just a few months. But it was like, as soon as I got here, I had to, like, you know, move things out, bring my things in. You know, there was a lot I needed to do to make it feel like how I need my space to feel. And it was just a top priority. But, you know, for bringing Hestia into your life is just to bring in more of this emphasis on like, really like, am I cooking for myself? Am I nurturing myself in my space? Am I bringing warmth and vitality? You know, one of the things that I noticed is that in our time, instead of like the flicker of the flame of the fire and, you know, the cooking happening, people have the TV screen and it like flickers. And sometimes people are addicted to having a TV on in their space because it feels like there's something alive. There's like a life force, there's energy, electricity, something coming out of it. And, or, you know, there are TV screens. but really looking at, how much life force and vitality are you really bringing into your home space, and different ways to bring that in, besides just the flame of candles and fire, are also crystals, plants, things that have aliveness to them, because it's a lot about bringing this energy, this shakti, this aliveness into the space, so it's not a dead space. Things that are natural. And again, some of you might already do this a lot, but beyond that, I want you to start just feeling into, for yourself, what in my physical home could I do to bring more of this Hestia energy in, or just to make my space feel more conducive for my practice, more a place that's really supportive of me, this priestess vow I took, this level of aliveness and presence. The beginning of this year, I had my space in Venice. I had a beautiful space. I aesthetically just loved the way it looked. But one of the things I realized was that it was a little hard. That I had I love wood floors. I had hardwood floors, and I had this beautiful wooden coffee table, and just everything, beautiful chair. Everything was set up really nicely. But I realized I wanted more softness, and so I went and I bought this gorgeous rug, and I actually got. It's a great suggestion for anyone who wants to take it. But I got one of these pads that you kind of put on a mattress, like a foam pad. I actually put it under this beautiful rug so that it would be this really squishy space. And I bought tons of pillows and put it on there. And I just laid there. And I remember I was part of me was am I allowed to have this? This is so good. And it was my space felt like a place that I wanted to be more in my feminine, more soft and juicy, and I could kind of roll around on there. And with my, well, I won't get into that, but it's more conducive to cuddliness and snuggliness and sensual experience. But also for my girlfriends when we come over, laying on there and doing, pulling cards from a deck and that kind of thing. It was just, I was oh, wow. So that is a Hestia thing, in the sense that it was adding to my environment, creating a space that just felt more conducive for the woman I am, as opposed to my idea of what it was all supposed to look like. So I want you to take a moment, and if you have paper with you, or if you've printed out your course manual, there's a page that says creating sacred space in your home. And so I just want you to take a moment and write down 3 things, 3 ideas, something that's brewing from what I brought up today that you want to implement into your space. So what can you do that'll, another way to think about it is for your space to feel like a temple or a palace. So anyone that's like having some good ideas, something you're excited about, raise your hand if you are. All right, I see the hand there. Raise once more if you're having some ideas, something you're excited about. Okay. All right. Okay. Jen, do you want to share?
Sure. So my first thought was that I needed to paint my living room pink. And then I was like, that seems like a lot of work. So I got it down to, I might need to get a couple more plants, and I definitely should get curtains. I think I need some curtains.
Mm-hmm.
After 13 years of being in this house, it might be time for curtains. And then I also want more gold in here.
Gold?
Gold, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like some fleur de lis.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of gold. I love it. Like, it just feels rich and like luxurious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you said palace, how do I make my place more like a palace? I'm like, yeah, I could use some palatial gold fleur de lis. Those are my first three ideas.
I love it. And with the pink, I mean, yes, that's like maybe a bit outrageous or like, a big thing to take on. But to feel into like maybe where that could come in somewhere, I have a friend who like her home really, she's such a queen. But in her office space, it's like entirely pink. And you just walk in there and I feel like, I'm like, this is just like a pussy palette. Like, yes. Like it just feels so good in there. So you can like feel into like where that wants to come in. Maybe it's not the living room, maybe it's not a whole space, but like maybe somewhere, something, some
maybe my bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Who else? I think Jessica or Faye had their hands up. Let's see. Okay, Faye. Hi, Faye.
Hello, everyone. The first thing I wrote down was softer couches because I have had my couches for 12 years and they're leather and they're leather and wood and I really have just wanted to replace them and I haven't. Although the curtains thing just totally did me in because I was actually thinking about it about a month ago. But the other thing I thought of for me was I've been meaning to just do a spring cleaning on my wardrobe and kind of just edit and just take down to the things I wear and what I need. And so softer couches, the things I wear, and frankly, right now, not tonight, but right now, I'm having guests for a month, and there are 4 people in my house. So the third thing I wrote down was less people, and when they leave, I'm super happy.
That'll be an interesting challenge, like to find your space for yourself, like, and that's another thing. So that I just want to touch on for a moment, which is that some of you may live alone. And so it's like you have an entire home that you kind of have under your domain. And some of you may, live with families in different capacities and finding like, okay, like, what, I don't have so much control over all of the space, but like within there, like what spaces can I make mine? Can I carve out a certain, I'm thinking for you, like Faye, it's like both time and space, but like where you get your privacy. But as far as just speaking of the, this concept of like the secret space and Hestia, like, where can you, and I'm going to talk about altars in a moment, but like, where can you find it's your space, that it's like, and maybe that's your pink place or your gold place or your, where you kind of bring that energy.
I do have a suggestion actually for the pink. And that is something I did 2 years ago. I repainted my bathroom and I truly wanted to do the entire thing in a bright, sunshiny yellow. And at the time I was married and my husband said he cannot live in a house where a room is yellow. But I'll post it on Facebook. I did the back of the door in the most bright possible yellow. I'll post it on Facebook so you guys could see, but it's only my bathroom. So now whenever I go in and I close the door, what I see is this bright yellow. It makes me happy every single time.
That's
So
a great idea, yeah, just do a door or like
yeah.
one, you can have like an accent wall instead of the whole thing.
Yep.
Awesome. We'll hear from one more person. I think Jess had her. Jess, did you want to share?
Yeah, immediately what came to mind was more rugs.
More rugs.
Like there's some places, all of the floors in this house are very hard as well. There's no carpeting, which I love, but I do love rugs. And I want to get a bunch of runners for my hallways. And also there's some editing that needs to be done. Just taking down some pictures that I don't resonate with. So that are in our bedroom that I really like to do. And so I'm going to have that conversation. And also I want to get a chase lounge for my bedroom.
Ooh, yeah.
And a soft chase lounge.
Yay. Awesome. So great ideas. So in the next week, part of your homework is to implement some of these things. Be just like looking around your space, noticing, feeling into it. Like, oh, if this is my sanctuary, if this is my temple or my palace, what can I do to bring more of that energy there? And also feeling into your I am statements that you're working on. Like, oh, is this the place where this person lives? Right? If I am XXX, like, is this her space? Or what could I do to make it more her space, so that you feel that reflection in your environment supporting you really living into that I am statement, and you're making choices about this structure in your life, that it's really reflecting back to you this sense of self. I want to do one thing. So the flame, again, is really important, and you may have noticed that lighting a flame is something that's very much associated with making something sacred, or an altar, or any kind of spiritual ritual. And it's really interesting because a good friend of mine is Jewish, and she was telling me the history of Hanukkah, and the candles, and this, how they represent this light, which is essentially, it's almost the same story as Hestia in the Jewish tradition, that they have this flame that represents the flame of life, like the life force, the vitality of the divine. And that I think the story with Hanukkah is that it was like they didn't have enough oil to keep the flame going, but then because the city was under siege, but then somehow they prayed, and it lasted for 7 days and 7 nights until the new oil could come. And but it's repeated through many cultures and many traditions, this idea of the flame representing the divine. And so it's something that at the beginning of every session I have, at the beginning of every class I teach, I always light a candle. And it's something that I always do when I'm going to go into my practice, is I light a candle on my altar. And I'm just going to light a little candle now, just to represent that flame. And, most of the time when we start our call, there'll just maybe be a little flame in the background. You might not always see it, but to know that that's there, it's something that I do to really hold that energy of our container, and to just represent that divine. And how that flame really does represent this divine flame within the heart, this divine flame within the center of our being, this life force that animates us. That is what brings presence. Now, in our home, we're speaking of, creating an environment that is supportive and feels like a sacred space. Beyond that, we have an altar, which is a space that's specifically dedicated to representing the divine within us, to representing our commitment to the divine. And some of you may already have an altar, and some of you, many of you may not. And part of your homework this week is to, if you don't have an altar, to start to create one. And if you do have an altar, to start to give it a little attention to it. And I really love, I put a quote in here. So there's a page in here that says creating an altar. And it's a space in your home that's specifically designated as your portal to connect to the divine. And I do want to say that, I have a loose definition of that. So we'll talk about what that can be. It's usually some sort of a flat surface where you may have a candle, crystals. Someone's not muted. That you may have a candle, crystals, pictures of goddesses, or things that are sacred to you. And depending on what your life is like, it can be something that's very big and in a very central point in your home, or it could be something that's very small and private. I had one woman a couple years ago who was a mama, and she was like, oh, my little one gets into everything. And she had a tray, and on that tray she kept all of her little sacred objects, and she kept it up on a shelf. And then when she was going to do her practice, she would bring it down, light the candle, and have the altar there in that way. It could be a shelf. Usually you want it to be somewhere that's easy to access, but it could be a little skinny shelf that's on a wall somewhere. Often it's something that's kind of low. Mine is a little kind of carved box that I put fabric over. But it's a creative endeavor, and it's a form of creative self-expression, and also this extension of your connection to the divine, and really showing what, when you put something on your altar, it's a way of saying that this is something that I value, this is something that's important to me, this is something I want my attention to go towards. And I'm going to read you this quote from Nancy Brady Cunningham. And it says, the physical presence of this altar is tangible evidence of the spiritual side of my being. An offering to the cosmic mother while I dash through my life, busy, anxious, engulfed. I return to my altar in the evening. It provides an almost living testament to the fact the spiritual energy within me has not been extinguished by my preoccupation with more pressing matters. This spiritual energy resides behind all the chaos of my emotional and psychological upheavals during the day, a quiet but constant companion. Altars are works of art with their symbols of color, form, and texture, yet they aren't static like many artistic creations. Candles and incense are burnt, vases of flowers are arranged and later removed. Artwork is enshrined, then replaced with the changing seasons of both year and heart. The color, form, weight, fabric, and scent of each object I choose to work into the altar assemblage carries its individual energy. In combination, they emanate a force more potent than the sum of parts. The gathering of these various energies creates a finished product that is always a surprise. The altar transforms the invisible inner self into a tangible work of art. I love that. The altar transforms the individual or invisible inner self into a tangible work of art. So altar creations offer an exceptional medium for discovering the soul's landscape. I really love that your altar is this physical, creative expression of your inner self. And that it is something that can shift with the seasons and with your inner seasons and what's up for you, what you're devoted to. And sometimes when we're someone that has an altar, it can get static, it can get kind of stuck as something. So if you are someone that already has an altar, I would love for you this week as well to spend some time with your altar, maintaining it. I know when mine gets dusty, that's a sign to me that I haven't been really, I haven't been fully present with myself and paying attention to that. So it's like making sure it's like well maintained in that respect, but then also feeling like, oh, is there something coming through for me, maybe connected to my I am statement, something that I want to add to this altar, something that I want to put on there right now. And for those of you that don't have an altar, just start thinking about, okay, and start feeling into like, what do I want to put on an altar? Start creating that for yourself. And again, it's a very loose definition. In many ways, I have my primary altar, and then in many ways, a lot of parts of my houses are like mini altars. It's like I have this, in my bathroom, I have this huge wooden counter, and on there, it's like I've got Mother Mary, and I've got crystals and flowers and feathers and sage, and in my bedroom, like on the top of the dresser, it's like I kind of bring that sense of altar everywhere in my space, but I also have a lot of freedom over expression in my house. But feeling into for yourself, like what's my altar look like, and really taking it on as a creative expression, as a kind of endeavor that is a part of your own artistic self. So take a moment and just, if you want to take some notes, or there's anything that's coming to you right now, maybe just start to feel into what you would like to add onto your altar. And as we move through the course, we're going to be working with different goddesses. So there'll be times when a particular goddess may really resonate for you. So you may, get a little statue or sculpture, or print out an image of her, or get one somewhere and place it on there. But at this moment, what would you like to add to an altar space? Who here already has an altar? If you have an altar, raise your hand. Okay, so we've got a few. Lulu, do you want to share about what's on your altar a little bit?
Yeah. Do you want to see a picture of it? I can show it.
Yeah. If you're able to show us.
I'll just turn it around. It's kind of dark in my apartment because it's like really late at night, but I'll turn a light on. Oh, that was the whistle. Not a light. But it's right here.
Beautiful.
But I resonate with you in that like almost every surface in my house is an altar. I decided in my last home, before I moved about a year ago, that I wanted every single part of my house to be sacred space, because it was the first home that I had ever had that was mine. I wasn't living in someone else's home as a guest. This was actually like my name was on the lease. I decided when I moved in, I decided when I moved out, and it was the first time that had ever happened, that I wasn't sharing a space, that it was actually mine. So every service, like everything at least that I could see, I wanted to be filled with something that I loved. So it's
beautiful.
Freedom I have in order to do that.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing and actually showing us your altar.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I just put flowers on it tonight. That's been something I've been doing. I've learned recently about like the 4 corners of Feng Shui, and I'm calling a lot into my relationship corner So I put flowers in my relationship corner of my altar, which is the upper left-hand corner, because that's the relationship corner of my house. So I thought that was fun. There's not much that I would really add to my altar, but I would like a more designated space for spiritual practice. Like I resonate with that, like super cozy rug, on the floor, just like a place where I can just like drop in.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. I feel like most women, that's something that we don't necessarily have and we crave. It's sort of like when I got that and I laid down, I just was like, I actually started to tear up because I was like, oh my gosh, I could have had this all along. It feels so good. So yeah, I encourage you all with softness, spaces that, surfaces, things that just really feel soft to you. I would also love, like this week or over the next couple of weeks while you're working on your altars, if you want to take pictures and share them on the Facebook group. That's something that's always fun to see, what's going on with different women's altars. And it's something that I feel like, because it is a form of artistic expression and creation, it's something that can be really, kind of, you can feel proud of and like have fun sharing. I wanted to touch in with you around I am statements tonight as well, since we didn't have very much time for that last week. Is there anyone who has been working on it and, would feel comfortable sharing part of it at least with us? Okay, I see one hand. I see a couple hands up. I'd love somebody. We usually have certain people that are more comfortable sharing and certain people that kind of, I'd love to hear from somebody we haven't heard from yet. Lissy and Emily, I can't see if you put your hand up because you're both coming through on the, I'm going to unmute you both just for a moment in case you want to speak up since you're just on the phone lines. Is there anyone who hasn't shared that would like to share? Morgan? Okay, great.
So I was kind of working on this all week when I would do my morning practice and just kind of like see what came up. And then before class tonight, I kind of sat down and pieced together like all the different things that kind of came up. I don't know if it's like totally done, but this is what I have so far. I am goddess, powerful and strong. I raise fire, a force to reckon. I am electric, unwaveringly connected to source and to myself. I am a warrior, unstoppable and fulfilling my purpose. I am a writer, fearless in unearthing what I have been collecting. Satnam.
Beautiful. Beautiful. How does it feel to say that?
It feels good. It feels like intense. I don't know, but good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's an intensity to it. And it's funny because it's like the words are, like I raise fire, I'm a warrior and like this kind of thing. And then you're kind of like, I see you kind of go, it's a little intense. And I encourage you to like, just really, cause that feels so true for you to like, just really own that and let yourself like play with the intensity and play with the largeness of that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Does anyone else want to share who hasn't shared? All right. I think Jen, you had your hand up. You've already shared, but you can share again.
So I had some really, from the Prosperous Goddess class, I thought when we started or when we did our call in the summer, I thought I really had it down. But after class last week, when you suggested that we do the Shakti breathing and then sit with, something very, very different came up. So, and I really love it. So this is what I have so far. I am sovereign, sacred, and the supremely competent queen, calling in my love, my financial abundance, my divine inspiration, and my joyful acceptance. And I surrender to my higher self with every breath. And as my serenity and peace amplify each day, I rise above any environmental and 3D challenges and transmute them into love.
Ooh, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I love that you use this like transmutation thing, you know, that you transmute it into love. Beautiful. Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah. How do you feel saying that?
Great. Really good. Yeah, like it's funny. It came to me in like a whoosh download, you know, after the morning exercise practice ritual. So I was like, yeah, oh, okay. Got it.
Awesome. Don't you love that? How it's like a channel. It just comes in.
Totally. Yeah. It felt very good. Like, and I didn't think about it. I literally just channeled and just wrote, and it was just this conscious stream of thought. And it actually kind of made, you know, once I was like, I've got to edit this, but then I was like, no, I'll just add a comma here and and here, and it actually makes sense. So yeah, it felt very good coming in, and I love it.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. All right. Okay. Is there anyone else? I'm trying to be able to see everybody at once that wants to share. We've got the same ladies. Oh wait, no, Lula. I'm hoping somebody's gonna put a hand up that we haven't heard from yet. Faye, do you want to share?
Sure, I will share. For me, I kept pretty much the same I am statement I've had since I did your class. How many years ago? And I've used it all along. It's been the thing I say to myself in the car, when I'm in the bathroom before an interview doing a power pose. That's what I say. And I'll tell you that, for maybe no one knows, but I got divorced recently. We separated a year ago. And for me, I was with Lorenzo 17 years. And we were married 12 years. And the thing I was very much most proud of myself during this process of dealing with this and changing my life and what have you, the thing I was most proud of is that I kept myself. I didn't lose myself along the way. I kept true to the person I wanted to be, the person I want to be. And so from that, I still thought about it, but I still stuck with my original. I am the creator of my universe. My being is the embodiment of the world I want to see for myself, for those I love and know, and for those I have yet to know. And that's mine.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's something that it feels like immediately as you say it, it draws you into your power. Like with that first statement, I am the creator of.
I am the creator of my universe.
Yeah. 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 And I can see how going through a really challenging time where so much is shifting and changing, having a statement like that would really help you to just breathe into like whatever is going on out there. In here, this is what's happening. So beautiful. And that's really the power of a really good I am statement, is that, and this lines up with what we've been talking about with Hestia, about just this emphasis of the inner world. A really good I am statement just keeps bringing you back to your center. It keeps bringing you back to, you know, I know who I am.
I know.
And because all that stuff out there is going to be changing all the time. And, 17 years of one way of life with somebody, and to have that shift, it can feel, I can imagine, almost like a death. It's like something, such a dramatic shift of your whole world and your whole landscape. And, the ability to just keep dropping into, as you move through all that shifting and changing landscape around you, of I know who I am. I know who I am. I am the creator of my universe. Really beautiful. Great. All right, I'm going to put you back on mute as well. So I want to leave a moment here if anyone has questions or comments about anything, about implementing any of the morning practices, anything we went over last week. If you do have a question or comment about that, or just anything you want explained more deeply, or something that's been coming up as you've been doing the practice, go ahead and type it in the chat and just let me know, and then I'll kind of give a moment to let you ask that question or to answer that for you. So I know there's a little delay, so I'm just going to wait a moment and see if anyone's has something that they want to ask. Okay, it looks like there's nothing coming up for anyone. Great, wonderful. All right, so I would like to do a little description for you of the next part of the course that we're moving into. So last week and this week were the two foundational weeks where we're really just looking at our body and our home and kind of getting ourselves on solid footing. And then we're about to move into the three faces of our feminine power, which are these three goddess archetypes that we're going to be spending time with. And we're going to start next week with the sensual goddess. And I know most of you did see the webinar that that I led last week, but for those of you that haven't, and just to kind of remind everyone, I just wanted to show you a little visual right now and make sure that we're all kind of on the same place. We know where we're going in the next phase of the journey. So let me do a little screen share. Okay, you're able to see the triangle right now? Yeah, great. All right, so this triangle is basically representing this triad of feminine power, and the base of the triangle is the feminine and the fierce, which is your sensual goddess and your warrior goddess, and the point of the triangle is the compassionate goddess, the free heart. And this essentially, this model of feminine power was something that downloaded to me when I was about to lead a retreat in 2012. And I had been working with different goddesses individually and different archetypes. And I was going to lead a retreat where we would spend 2 days with the sensual goddess, 2 days with the warrior goddess, and 2 days with the compassionate goddess. And as I was preparing, this download came in and this triangle appeared across my body as I was actually in meditation. And I could feel immediately that this was actually a very complete expression of what feminine power is, and that this is an expression of what it means to be an embodiment of the divine feminine, that all of this was being communicated through this symbol, through this shape. And I could kind of feel the way the energies were interacting with each other. But first of all, I just want to point out that a triangle is a representation of what it means to be a divine being in human form. And that's really, what we've been talking about, like in the top of the call when I was speaking about being an embodiment of the divine in the sense of bringing sacredness and presence to every moment. It's this union that's happening between your physical self and this divine. And of course, the breath is the doorway between the two. It's what connects. It's like, that's what connects the spirit with the body. And we know that, if we've ever been there, when someone's taken their last breath, it becomes very, it's like clear that its spirit enters us is, you know, when we are alive in that way, our body is animated through the breath. The triangle is this representation of duality and non-duality in one symbol. It's basically the sacred geometric expression of what it means to be a divine being in human form. Because in the world, in the material world we live in, we have dualities. We have day, we have night, we have masculine, we have feminine. We have this interplay of opposites. And then out of those opposites, the myriad of infinite expressions comes. Now, that's duality. The non-dual space is the space of the divine. That's the space of spirit. That is, we are all one. It's like in that space, it's like we're all individual drops of the same divine energy. So it's saying we are one. I am you, you are me, feeling that union, that unification. And yet at the same time, in the material world, you know, we're different. I'm me, you're you. We have these differences in the separation. The triangle is this representation of non-duality and duality, non-duality, duality. And we have this interplay of opposite energies within us as women. We have both this feminine expression and this more, in some ways you would say, masculine expression. And how I work with this is through saying, you know, this is the fierce, it's the warrior goddess. So it's not just how I work with this. This is what's been represented again and again across cultures over time in the goddess stories, is that we have the warrior goddess as an expression of the masculine within the feminine. That it's not the same thing as being in your masculine. It's still feminine. It's still a goddess, but she holds those energies more, this ferocity, this fierceness, this more goal orientation. It's also courage. Now, the feminine is the sensual goddess, and that's the most feminine within the feminine. And we're going to begin with her next week. Our journey is going to be starting with the sensual goddess for 3 weeks, and then we'll move into the warrior goddess for 3 weeks. And then our final 3 weeks is with the compassionate goddess. And the compassionate goddess is when we move up into the heart space, which is the non-dual. So, and within that compassionate goddess space, it's kind of the union of that yin and that yang. And we're going to be moving our energy, that Shakti energy, upwards through, you know, drawing that energy up into the pelvis, into the sensual center, and then working that energy up through the warrior goddess, through the gut and the warrior energy and the womb space, all the way up to the heart. And that's the embodied journey. So we have like kind of, you know, this version of the journey that we can see out there, and this version that we experience through our body. And working with Hestia this week, it's like we're igniting this flame, we're opening up the channel so that we can start to really experience that goddess energy moving through us. I'm going to take us off of the screen share now. I think you've seen that enough. So the physical expression of this is that we literally were awakening the goddess within us. So the Shakti energy is the goddess herself. It is her consciousness, and it's also this electricity, and it's this nectar, and it's this energy that moves up, that we start to awaken her different palaces, her different kind of channels, and really it's like her temple within the body and the seat of consciousness, so that we're able to really live and breathe and emanate these different goddess energies, and literally our body becomes an expression of her. So I want to do a little bit longer Shakti breathing practice with you together this evening, and really start to draw in everything that we've talked about, bringing in the energy of Hestia, this experience of the ecstasy of embodiment, and just let us really go deep into the experience. So I invite you to go ahead and put things to the side, your pens and notes, and really get yourself into a comfortable seated position where you can either be in a chair or you could be seated cross-legged on a mat or on the floor. So just get into that cozy spot. And once you're there, go ahead and close your eyes. starting to bring the energy inward, out of that outer world and awareness of others into the inner space. Really the landscape of Hestia. And as we did at the top of the class, starting to come into that juicy center point within by dropping your awareness down to the parts of your body, making contact with the floor, the seat beneath you. And softening, releasing armor. And we begin to do that through just breath and awareness. Like flame to candle wax, softening the whole pelvic floor. Oh. Inviting in sensation, aliveness, and breathing through resistances and armoring. And dropping your cord of connection, letting yourself get plugged in, wrapping it around that core of the earth. And feeling your body as the temple of Hestia, where we're going to light that sacred flame and invite that earth Shakti, invite Hestia's wisdom, her flame to move through us as we do our practice this evening. Inviting your own personal experience of transmission of her energy through your physical container. So we're going to begin to do the breath, inhaling in through the nose, holding, and exhaling out through the mouth, Darth Vader. Inhaling, holding, and exhaling. Inhaling, holding, exhaling. Next breath, inhaling in through the sexual center. Holding, and exhaling. Inhaling. Holding. Exhaling. Inhaling in through your sexual center. Holding. Exhaling. Inhaling in through the sexual center. Hold. Exhale. And as you exhale, feeling that Shakti energy emanating through your body, like you're letting it move up into the womb, into the belly. Inhaling. Holding. Exhaling. One more. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Taking a moment, pausing with the eyes closed in the inner realms, in your inner sanctum, feeling your temples flame being lit, feeling this vitality, this life force, this juice of the goddess that is now beginning to bubble and brew in your own pelvic floor. And then we'll begin the pelvic rocking, keeping the eyes closed. We're gonna start to fan the flames, let that flame grow by bringing in a little bit of this more warrior-like fire energy. So inhaling and forward and exhaling back. And here, really letting the pelvis guide, feeling it like a wild horse, feeling like this more primal part of yourself. You're just giving her permission, this untamable self, just giving her permission to guide. And letting her find the pace, the rhythm. And when you come to a kind of a climax of energy, you can bring it to stillness. And then sitting down for a moment and feeling the aliveness of her, feeling the aliveness of this life force. And starting to give yourself permission to move with it. How does she want to awaken your physical and subtle energetic body? The flame of Hestia lighting up the lower temple. Letting this become a subtle kind of dance of just the interplay, the movement of this energy. Letting the energy rise. Lighting the temple and the womb and the belly and the gut. Lighting the flame. Choosing to occupy and embody your own body and subtle energy centers more fully, more richly. Letting that energy rise into the heart space and perhaps seeing the flame light up in the heart space in that temple, coming to life, your presence, awakening the wisdom of the heart. Space behind the heart, tops of the shoulders. Sternum, the throat, back of the neck, back of the head, crown. And whenever you feel like maybe the energy is like getting lighter or dispersing as it rises, remember to bring your energy back to the pelvis. And maybe kind of like siphon in or draw in more of that energy. And keep that flow moving. And eventually allowing it to move all the way up through the crown of the head. Showering back over you. It's almost like you're being baptized by your own delicious goddess energy. Absorbing it back in. And taking a moment to just come to relative stillness. You might notice that your body still has a little undulation or a little circling, or that Shakti, she's always moving just a little bit, even in your stillness. Remembering your I am statement. And we'll do one ma chant from here. I'm just going to take a moment to unmute you all so you can hear each other's voices. Unmute. All right. Inhaling. Beauties. So have a gorgeous, gorgeous week. I'm just going to make sure the chat is open in case there's any last questions that want to come in. But just continue your practice, start implementing these Hestia suggestions. I encourage you to be active on the Facebook group. It helps keep the momentum going when we hear each other, we cheer each other on. And we'll see you next week, and we'll start to delve into the sensual goddess. So, Aphrodite is next week. All right, beauties. Mwah. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night. Bye. Bye.